Good evening, everyone. So, our questions are describe our own experiences on something that has triggered us in practice. What did it remind us of, and how did it make us feel? I think I might hit this on a different light. About a month and a half ago, us supervisors was required to do a mandatory training at a office in Knox County, Tennessee. And I get there and I immediately recognize the parking lots, which was okay. But then I walk into the building and walk into the conference room where we was meeting at, sat down in the conference room, and then immediately started shaking, started sweating. And my supervisor looks at me and she's like, Ashley, what is wrong with you? Um, So it was actually the same building that I was in when I originally went into foster care, and then had my child and family team meetings at when I was in foster care. It's where I had my initial supervised visitation with my mother, my stepfather at until they was ended. So I had to explain to my supervisor that although I thought I had moved past all of those events, that being in that office for that training was triggering back when I first originally came into foster care and all of the conflict that I had back with my mom and my stepfather when I was a child. It was like everything from my childhood started coming back to me while I was trying to perform my job duties. Absolutely horrible. But I did have to sit through it and I had to get through it because it was a mandatory training that I really needed to have. And then afterwards, I told my supervisor, I said, I hope I never have to come back here again. But it was definitely eventful. It made me realize that things that I didn't realize was still a trigger for me, is still a trigger, and that some of the things I thought that I had coped with and grown past might still be a little bit more present than what I'd like to think by being back in that building. With that being stated, it's crazy because I work for the Department of Children's Services. I work with youth all the time that's had similar backgrounds to mine, and usually that is not triggering at all. But walking into that building was, and I've actually even been into the courthouse where we did all the removal stuff from. Been in the same exact courtroom, and that was not triggering either. So, have no clue why that was triggering at that moment, but it was. One other thing I think that's with my current profession that has triggered me is whenever kiddos tell me that they don't feel heard or they don't feel understood, especially when I see that they have had extensive departmental history and nothing seems to be done, even though the allegations has been founded as true, whether it be severe physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, educational abuse, substance. Anyways, so you know, I used to have a really salty taste for the departments because I grew up in foster care with the departments. I was that kid that had many, many different investigations. My teachers was calling them in. One of the psychiatric hospitals called them in. I mean, there's just a lot of things. And it was like everything went to a deaf ear. So when I have a child that comes to me and tells me that they're not feeling heard or that no one's listening to them, or why do we continue allowing them to go through that situation, it brings me back to my memories as a childhood, as my childhood. And then I tend to overwork the case at that point, whether it's my case or not. I will put myself in the middle of the case to ensure that I know that those kids' needs and safety is being met. So, because it makes me get really emotional thinking that we're failing a child and that we might be leaving a child in unsafe places. Recently we had a case where it really was not our job to work it the way that we did. However, they had already had 10 previous referrals and nothing had been done. And it was just insanely crazy that we just let these kids in this home. Um, so, with that being said, I gotta learn that no matter what the situation may be, I have to stay within my grounds and my job duties and within my boundaries. But that is really hard for me to do with me previously being in foster care, even though it's been, gosh, almost 30 years. So, alright, guys, hope y'all enjoyed my spill. Have a good day.